I do like to see kind of harder metrics where you're influencing and you can show the returns. Sales blaming marketing for the lack of leads.
AI, how do you see it impacting B2B marketing?
The framework to be able to do that effectively is understanding your target customer inside out.
New things you want to try for your clients in 2024?
The algorithm is so good and so terrifyingly addictive.
Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to this episode of the Growth Hike podcast. Today I have Ed Davidson here with me. He's a fractional head of marketing working with B2B companies, tech companies, and startups. He also hosts the great shoutouts webinars, very informative when it comes to B2B marketing. He has a broad range of experience across all marketing. Welcome, Ed.
Good to be here. Looking forward to it.
Good to have you here today. Can you please share what's your background and a little bit of the clients you work with so we get a perspective on what you do?
Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, so good to see everyone. So my background, I was 15 years client side. So I worked with kind of large companies like Experian. I worked for the RAC. I also worked for smaller companies that are backed by kind of private equity. And also spent some time working at a VC for a short period of time in London as well. So working with kind of more early stage startups and companies that were getting kind of funding. Coming up to 5 years, I've been working as a consultant across a number of different businesses. I operate as a fractional head of marketing, normally work with small teams with businesses that are looking to scale, but don't necessarily require a full-time CMO or head of marketing. And then I work with those teams around strategic direction and how we can scale and grow marketing, and often work with B2B companies. So either fintech or prop tech. And often it's the case that we are growing kind of marketing channels, generating either sign-ups from a kind of SaaS perspective or generating leads for salespeople and helping those salespeople to hit their targets. So that's my background and what I'm doing at the moment.
Fractional head of marketing. Can you please elaborate what a fractional head of marketing is and how a company can benefit from working with a fractional head of marketing?
So fractional is a term that's sometimes a bit of a kind of buzzword, but all it really means is you're operating across a number of different clients at a time. You can either do that on a day rate basis or a project basis or even kind of performance level. And rather than having, being in-house and working with one particular or in one particular client, you're across a number of different businesses. So the advantage for the client is you get a good range of experience. You only obviously pay for that period of time that you're working with a fractional person like me. And then there's obviously kind of benefits in terms of not needing to have employ somebody full time or make, potentially as the size of the company grows, a bad hire as a permanent hire or somebody who's not quite right. And often it's the case that I'll work with an organization for a period of time. And then at the end of that, they'll bring in a kind of permanent CMO or a permanent head of marketing as they get to a certain scale, and then they require it. I think that, the movement mainly came from the States. There's often kind of either portfolio or fractional CFOs that would work across companies. And I think that process is then expanded to other roles. This difference in terms of like seniority. I prefer to position myself as like a sleeves rolled up, like head of marketing. Obviously, you can have CMOs that are very much at the kind of higher level, kind of board level, but obviously they're really super expensive. I prefer working with existing teams, being embedded with those teams, and then helping them to drive out And often it's the case that individuals within those teams will step up as well and potentially kind of take more kind of senior roles as I'm kind of working with them as well. So yeah, there's good advantages to fractional CMO, fractional head of marketing. I think you just need to work out the right balance within the team and where you are as your kind of growth as an organization.
Very interesting. I would imagine you bring expertise from different domains because you work with a variety of companies.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think sometimes even if you're working in one particular industry or one particular specialism in terms of channels, then you can be quite narrow. I think I suppose what I bring is I have an understanding across a breadth of messaging channels and different businesses and can see what works within those businesses, and then you can apply it to a particular organization based on their ICP and their targets and objectives. So I think it's good having that range of experience, not only in terms of your experience and my background. I mean, I've been kind of working with businesses for 20 years, obviously, but I think it's also helpful to be across a range of different companies. I think as well as a lot of it is to do with your network and your ability to bring in particular people. So, I've got a kind of range of freelancers in terms of channel owners or specialists that I can call them and bring them in at the right time, kind of snap them in and snap them out. But I do think, you sometimes speak to founders or owners and they don't necessarily think they need any internal resource, but I think you do need a foundation and a solid internal resource because I am only there for a particular period of time and agencies are separate. Having a team and a hungry team and a growing team internally, I think is important as well. So that's kind of my insight into it.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, B2B marketing has its own specifics. And what are the unique challenges that B2B marketers face?
Yeah, so I've worked in B2B and B2C. There's definitely kind of crossovers between the two. People like to say it's not separate. I think the biggest separation for it, especially when you get up to the kind of enterprise sales level, is that there is far longer sales cycles. There's also far more individuals that you're potentially trying to influence within a decision-making set of an organization before they decide to make a decision. Um, and then in terms of budget allocation, return on marketing spend, or return on kind of effort, it's slightly harder to track than it would be. Well, probably a number of years ago with B2C, obviously kind of everything was tracked. As we go more cookieless, that's becoming slightly more problematic. But you did have a slight easier spend X return Y to be able to work out marketing spend in terms of, or marketing returns in terms of attribution. With B2B, because you're influencing those stakeholders, and there might be a long period of time before that sale is made, proving that the spend and effort has made a difference is more challenging. I think I sometimes speak to working really closely with sales owners. When you start hearing things like, especially within their target market, we're seeing you everywhere. That's like a nice kind of soft view that you're having that influence and getting that engagement. But I do like to see kind of harder metrics where you're influencing and you can show the returns. So either that classic kind of MQL to SQL, you're generating a lead that has interest and the salesperson can pick up, especially an SDR that can qualify that lead off the back of marketing and then build it out for an AE to convert. Or what I'm doing at the moment with a client, you're really proving that you're driving demos, right? So you're to a salesperson, that's bottom of the funnel. That's where they're the hand raiser that really wants an engagement, and where you're showing that and you're showing how you are doing that from your approach in terms of messaging or your spending allocation of resource is proves like a really strong case that your returns from the marketing and effort.
Any success stories that you could share?
Yeah, well, I mean that one kind of springs to mind because we're doing it at the moment. So that's very much a kind of focus on driving demos. We've got good relationships with partners and associations, which adds kind of a another social stamp to it. So you've already got that level of authority, and then we have played with promotions, right? So I think often with B2B, there's people sitting on the sidelines, not necessarily wanting to commit. If you do offer promo of a free trial for a certain period of time or money off to get those people off the sidelines and into the game and engage with sales, that has kind of worked for us. It's just working out a way that's sustainable, and different promos or different ways of bringing people in. On the flip side of that, a kind of account-based marketing where you have key accounts or key individuals that you're going after, and it's very much more of a content play to build like thought leadership there. Yeah, I've built out kind of ABM cases that have worked out well. I think it's if you are going to go down the route of kind of content marketing and white papers, they have to be truly stand out and have to have truly level of use and value for your target market. And then as you're building out that thought leadership, it builds opportunities to have conversations. So yeah, so I think there's a couple of good stories there, both from ABM style to more kind of like true kind of lead gen into kind of demos.
Okay. Uh, there are some more questions I would like to ask about thought leadership, but let's come back to that a little bit later. Uh, it's February and still early in the year now. How do a head of marketing approaches planning and strategizing in 2024?
Uh, yeah, I mean, often it kind of works in terms of the financial year of the organization and kind of when you're kind of planning your allocation of marketing and marketing spends, and how that is going to help hit sales targets and kind of what's required kind of higher in the funnel. Um, the kind of the way that I tend to analyze our approach is kind of running an audit of what's been done historically, what's the kind of best results in terms of start, stop, or continue. What has been the kind of proven cases where there's been kind of returns and where things haven't worked out and fallen flat. Um, you can, obviously, with a budget available, you can plan out over the course of a number of months. But I think to me, like a 90-day plan or chunks in terms of 3 months at a time is the best kind of view. I think that gives you the best level of kind of planning to say, right, we're going to run a cadence of this number, a webinar every month, or we're going to plan and allocate this amount to this particular event that's coming up. I think that's good kind of an amount of time to get everyone on board and everyone booked into it. I think trying to plan any further than that, unless you're doing like big, like above the line campaigns that a lot of preparation, you need to be able to pivot enough where you've seen results and you might need to change and allocate more chips to certain things in terms of media spend or effort as well. So that's the kind of the way I tend to work. And then, yeah, I think it's in any bit in a given business, both from like either product or growth or sales. There's 1,000 things that you could do or trial. I think the best way of kind of prioritizing that is just being super clear. And I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but just I often go through the kind of ICE method, if you've heard that, in terms of impact, confidence, and ease of like execution. That really like focuses minds on what there's going to be in terms of the best level of impact, holding hand on heart, that kind of confidence that you're going to have that you're going to be able to actually deliver on it, and then how easy it is to actually execute, because often you can have a great idea, but it's going to cost way too much to execute. We're going to take too long to execute, then you've got to like build up that consideration. Classic way of doing it, bringing everyone together and helping to prioritize that and everyone being on the same page. And then having that scoring system to add like some methodology to it. So then you kind of come out with very clear scores. So then you can like allocate your chips accordingly based on that level of planning and those kind of 3 month cycles. Does that make sense?
I love this, absolutely love this. So focus on impact, have some structure, and leave ourselves some wiggle room to pivot and reprioritize where it resources where it performs.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
How do you ensure alignment between marketing strategies and sales objectives?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a bit of a term that's maybe used a number of times, but smarketing in terms of having sales and marketing brought together is so important. So the worst case situation is you have sales blaming marketing for the lack of leads or the quality of leads. And on the other side, you've got marketing saying, "Well, we're giving you all these leads or opportunities. Why are you not looking after them, or you're not kind of converting off the back of them?" So having teams aligned and working together is so important. I think also just in terms of how an organization is structured to make sure that is the case and it's not kind of divide and conquer between the teams, I think is important as well. So yeah, so very clear objectives that are brought together that are aligned. I think as well, often you have a case that marketing either work in isolation from sales, as in they don't kind of have conversations with them, or that marketing aren't close enough to the customer. So they're not involved actively in sales calls, or they're not out meeting the ICP and having that kind of true understanding of that. I think sometimes you can have marketing teams where they're not close enough, where they're just receiving orders or requests from the sales team when they should be the voice of the customer. But in terms of marketing and growth coming together, they should be driving suggestions that are going to make a real impact. So regular meetings, a decent level of feedback from the sales and marketing, open and honest kind of feedback to kind of understand the quality that marketing is providing. And then targets that are shared in the responsibility of not just driving leads where things are thrown over the side, but driving revenue and kind of showcasing that marketing is helping to drive that revenue. All those things are really important. When the system is singing, you have sales being like, yeah, great shout, pat on the back through the latest activity. They know exactly when marketing are doing particular campaigns or activities and can see the results of that and support it. And then marketing is sharing in sales, hitting those targets and reaching those targets. That's when the best thing comes together and the teams grow together. And just the last thing I think is just sometimes there's a view with organizations that marketing involved in that kind of top part of the funnel, and then the lead is thrown over the wall and then sales complete it. Marketing should be influencing positively all parts of that funnel. And when an existing customer comes on, if you do have customer success, how referrals can be systemized, how case studies can be generated, and that user generated content and that activity is so powerful then to go back up the funnel and acquire more people. So there you go.
It's marketing. I like this. We need to talk to the salespeople. Right. In marketing, a large part of marketing is problem solving. And everybody has their own approach to problem solving. What's your framework?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned the ICE framework there. I think that's kind of how you're prioritizing. You're certainly right in terms of how marketing, goes about the best level of marketing is problem solving. I think the framework to be able to do that effectively is understanding your target customer inside out, but also kind of more than that. I quite recently came to like the jobs to be done framework, and I kind of prefer that far more than any level of kind of persona understanding, because that is what your customer or user is looking to achieve. They don't care who you are or what you do. They want their problem solved. The more you understand that, the more you can have an effective level of messaging, which is going to influence them. It's how effectively you can consider the customer journey with the right touch points to bring them in like the seamless way. And the better you can build loyalty in a relationship with that customer to mean that they effectively talk about you in terms of word of mouth, and you kind of engage with potential people. I think that there's also how you then build a movement associated with your product and service outside of it just doing functionally what they initially thought. And that's when you have true loyalty, and that's when you have kind of more people engaged. But yeah, I mean, going all the way back to that kind of problem solving, I think that the heart of it is understanding your customer, and then being able to kind of figure out what is going to drive it. And I think the other part is just unpicking what the barriers to sale are and what those kind of alternatives that they would have. Because I think the worst case scenario is that kind of apathy where you're not necessarily moving them forward in any particular direction because they're apathetically sticking to their existing kind of solution. And I think that's often the case with B2B because they probably have an existing solution that they've patched together that works for them to a degree. If that's software or if that's offering a service, your solution in in a logical kind of application needs to be able to solve that for them, but they also need to kind of engage and see the promised land of what you could actually offer as well. So yeah, that's the answer to that one.
Very interesting. You mentioned that you recruit people to help, whether those are agencies, freelancers, or employees. I want to hear your views on building an in-house team or employing agency partners and consultants. How do you see things?
Yeah, I think the best kind of view is that if you have an in-house team that's working for you hard and has ambitions to grow their career within the organization, that's the foundation. I think it's super difficult to outsource everything, and if you don't have those foundations, then it can be a little bit kind of feel disconnected in terms of any other departments and not have that kind of that those roots or that foundation. I think the best people in house in terms of marketing are probably classic t-shirt marketers, but they're hungry and willing to grow. And then the way I suppose you see it, you can then snap in the relevant people for the relevant jobs. So I can come in terms of head of marketing to provide a little bit more kind of strategic guidance and kind of in-depth understanding of how it works with, say, sales or product in classic kind of growth levers in that way. Then you just need to work out what like specialisms that you might need to bring in to be able to support the in-house team. So if that's particular channel expertise, if that's kind of individuals that have got kind of a wider network that can be brought in at the kind of right time. And in some ways, if you are scaling quickly, that can do the heavy lifting. I think sometimes that is the case with, say, a big paid search activity where you've got a lot of campaign work to do, and a junior person might not be able to have the best skills to do that. I think the other part is if you can see the seeds of a particular channel or engagement working with a small in-house team, and you can see that there is potential to scale that, then you can bring in external expertise to throw true fuel on the fire with media spend, but also expertise to just move quicker and kind of like double down on it. So I think that works as well. With it kind of as externals as well, as you can see that has worked and scaled out, then you can maybe justify bringing in a specialist owner of that particular channel or area. If that's partnerships or if that's kind of paid, and then they are going to probably be cheaper than external expert, but they just need to have true specialism understanding, and to be able to bring in the amount of returns that's going to be required. So I think that's the way that I suggest it works, but it very much depends on the level of budget you have, burn rate, and kind of scaling. And that picture has changed a lot since COVID, right? In terms of since funding's been more restrained, and organizations need to really prove that the returns are there, as opposed to just like scaling at all cost. So it's a very different kind of situation potentially it is now than it was, say, kind of 18 months ago.
You mentioned towards the beginning of the conversation thought leadership, and also you mentioned prospects or clients saying that they see your campaign everywhere. Can you talk to us a little bit about the emerging trends nowadays and the channels where you can achieve that?
Yeah, I mean, emerging trends wise, at least kind of certain things that I've kind of seen. So I think at least, especially kind of B2B, social and any level of kind of social associated with the business is pretty tough to get any traction. But I think there is a lot more scope to build out traction of individuals within an organization that get engagement. So classic, for a kind of scale up is kind of co-founders who are very visible on kind of social platforms, very visible in terms of through other influencers or kind of podcasts and things like that. And then using appropriate paid media to give that even more fuel in the fire. That's kind of working pretty well. I think that level of engagement of an individual associated with the company just has far more likelihood of making an impact and influence than the brand of the company itself. I think the ideal situation, if I mentioned it earlier on, is that you find that movement. You're building a movement which your service enables, but provides kind of value for the users above and beyond just what that service is providing. So it's you mentioned that kind of promised land kind of situation where there's like an old way of doing things, a new way of doing things. If you can grab people's attention and they feel part of that from a B2B perspective, it does become quite tribal in that way. And I think you get more engagement there. I think kind of, emerging trend is going to be pretty interesting to see what, bit of a term everyone's using, but AI, obviously. I mean, the growing trends that tools are being used and are useful to be able to scale up content or scale up ideas. Somebody said to me last night, I was at a meetup, and they said they're also seeing, they're asking questions of how did you hear about us? Classic kind of B2B situation where there's multiple stages of that attribution. And some prospects are now saying ChatGPT. Now, presumably, if they're putting ChatGPT, they're using that as a way of getting information, but also that client or their client is appearing associated with the content out of ChatGPT, either as a reference or a particular part. So that's pretty interesting. And I think it shows kind of the level of engagement, potentially, Gen Z up, of using those tools to search for things rather than classically Googling things. That will then, how that plays out with impacts to SEO and organic traffic, definitely on the B2C, but also on the B2B side, if you're kind of driving out content around middle of the funnel informational terms and things like that, will that see a decline? How that will play out with paid search, I think that's going to be pretty interesting as well. So yeah, I think there are kind of few trends. How you influence the decision-making unit, through account-based marketing. I think a lot of people are spending out on account-based marketing because they believe that a specific group of clients and target market that are perfect for their ICP, you're more likely to get over the line and be able to be spending against that particular group. That's fine, and that is right to do that and have those targets. But I think you need to really think about the quality and the value that you're providing those people, because it doesn't matter if you know exactly who you're targeting, you're not providing that value, then you're not going to have that level of influence. So there also has to be like a deep seam of either content which has an element of data associated with it, which adds kind of value, um, or you're providing kind of value and use in other ways that then reflects positively, which influences customers and gets your product in front of them. And then I've heard from a few people, and I'm kind of interested to test it just around classic things of podcasts, but people not necessarily using podcasts to get wide reach. They're using a podcast format to have interviews with people that they think would be worthwhile, and then using that as a way of having conversations that lead to potential sales opportunities. So it's not podcast associated reach. It's direct kind of conversations with people that enable sales conversations off the back of it. So yeah, so there's a few things that I'm considering. Obviously, the AI and what will happen with search is we'll have to see how that has an impact down the line.
Yes. You mentioned getting the co-founders involved and using paid promotion to perpetuate that content. You mean video content, I would assume.
So what we've been using quite recently with a client of mine is thought leadership ads. So you can promote individuals' content. It doesn't actually allow you to do video. It's more individual posts, and the kind of format is not even like multiple images. It's like a single image format. But my view on it is, rather than promoting a business, you're promoting the individual, and if you can, it's basically boosting it, right? But you're boosting it to a particular group of your ICP, which there's going to have a difference. I think that's pretty powerful. So yeah, that's a way of getting promoting individuals, posts. And what I think you need to do, maybe it's a classic Gary V thing, is that you're identifying which are the organic posts that are having the most traction, and you don't want it to be like really top of the funnel kind of informational stuff. But it's more like in the middle there where you're adding value, and it's maybe a particular angle or spin on something that other people haven't thought about. A lot of associated comments and engagement. You can then boost that and put more fuel on the fire and getting it in front of more people.
When it comes to channels, you mentioned podcasts, you mentioned search. Any emerging platforms that make sense for businesses to try?
So I mean, I suppose the biggest growth platform is going to be TikTok, right? A lot of people have said to me that it's possible to get it to work from B2B perspective. I think you're probably going to be maxing out what you're going to be doing through Meta or through paid search. I think for those companies that need to push discovery, so where there isn't like a natural search state where they're searching for a solution, then you're driving kind of Meta to see if it works. LinkedIn is going to work to a degree, but it's very difficult to get LinkedIn to work in terms of a cost per lead to get people to the platform because it's kind of super expensive. And then, yeah, it's just really interesting around TikTok. So I think the algorithm is so good and so terrifyingly addictive that it will find people that do have interest and will engage with TikToks around business. And then it will find those people and give them that content. I think TikTok is so kind of different from the other social channels because there's so many people that just lurk on it. And they lurk on it because it's just enjoyable to consume the content. That there is a space there for business related content on there as well. And there are there's 1,000 different niches, right? But if you're looking at an estate agent who's particularly good on TikTok from an organic perspective, or particular kind of niche where you can find those individuals, I think you can have some engagement. I think the difficulty is you've got to get the format right because it's got to be truly native. If it's anything other than that, people, it just is so jarring that they'll just scroll through it. And how you then gauge the return on investment from it. I think again, click off from platform, getting people to do something, it's a lot harder. But in terms of brand engagement, if you can get the content right, the algorithm will find the right your people, your people that are engaging. So I think that's one to keep your eye on it. Have I used it with clients from a B2B perspective? No, in terms of like getting the results that I've seen so far. But I think it's one that's emerging as more and more people use it.
Yes, they recently introduced 30-minute video uploads on TikTok. I still don't have that, but yeah, it's an evolving platform. It's worth keeping an eye on this one. Uh, AI, how do you see it impacting B2B marketing? Is it just content creation or any other?
It's going to be fascinating to see um, what I mean right now. What can AI be used for? So I think it's part of the armor or the armory for like creativity. So in terms of giving ideas to things, um, in terms of using it as a tool to say scale content and things like that. I think it has its problems. I think it ends up being a little bit of the kind of cookie cutter process. So content marketers they're not being replaced yet. Um, but I think is a way of like generating ideas or way of capturing what people, in terms of their customer journey, are interested in, and kind of running it through there. I think I use Bard, I use ChatGPT to do that. I think I mentioned the other kind of the response there around what it means for the search experience, and those kind of language models and what people are going to be, how they're going to be getting information is going to be pretty interesting. And I think you maybe it's a little bit of it's been started a long time ago, but from a B2B perspective, people just don't want to be sold to, right? Half of a crazy stat recently in terms of it being even up to 90%. So half of the due diligence and thought process you've done before you even ever spoke to a salesperson, and 90% of that is done beforehand, right? So people are you're talking about kind of dark social where they're speaking to their friends or their contacts, either in kind of groups or on WhatsApp or on Slack channels, asking which is the best tool, what kind of provides the solution, or they're checking out your product and service either through a free trial. So you want to know what's kind of happening within the product before you actually want to pay for it, or you're doing everything you can to get information within the site before you book that demo. Once you book the demo, it's really the last kind of hurdle to it. It's not necessarily the salesperson influencing you. You're either willing and ready to progress, or you're looking for an offer. So I digress there a little bit. I mean, AI and what it can offer, I think it's a tool that will help marketers, but it's still up to the marketer to really understand, as I said, just deep understanding of the customer journey, understanding their pain points, and then being able to get the position in front of the users to influence them and in terms of their customer journey. I suppose it creates more interest is just the ability and the impact to software and software development, and levels of kind of co-pilots, which either means that kind of engineers can just build things so much quicker, or you have kind of situation with software and software margins and B2B margins where products are a lot easier to produce. So potentially those margins will be eroded because it's just you don't have those level of moats that you had before. So in some ways, I think it's more of an impact on the product and the development side than it is necessarily on the marketing side.
The thing that you mentioned, uh, somebody discovering an event on ChatGPT, that makes me wonder whether ChatGPT falls into the dark social bucket or into search.
Yes, it's a good point. Uh, yeah, I mean, is it dark social because you're asking your Chat GPT friend the answer? I mean, I suppose that's where it goes to in the end. The model understands you so much from your previous prompts that it can provide a far better answer to you than your friends would do, right? So I suppose that is dark social, but it's still you are searching for the responses to things, and you know I'm old enough to know, before that was the Yellow Pages, you were searching for a solution to something and you're looking in a physical Yellow Pages book. Obviously, then Google provides that level of kind of search to a response. And then, again, back to TikTok, there's a lot of examples that kind of younger generations aren't even using search in that way. And they would prefer to search for things in the social networks to be able to get responses, not just from their friends, but other people and content, as opposed to a classic ask question, get response back. So yeah, it's definitely interesting thought on it. Yeah.
New things you want to try for your clients in 2024?
Uh, well, let's go through kind of what we were saying. So definitely, I'd love to try, TikTok and try and get that to work. If it truly is like the wild west of what Facebook was, and maybe where paid ads before, so you can buy impressions super cheaply, and you can get their responses from it. I'd like to, I've kind of got it planned. I'd like to kind of go back to some level of kind of old school direct mail, maybe not just like a letter, but gifting or things like that. As people come back have come back into the office and they're more engaged in that way, and all the other channels are potentially saturated. Can you engage people, especially decision makers, with truly creative direct mail and gifting or engagements that elicit a conversation? And then, yeah, I think there's always interesting things to work out around how marketing and sales are working together. And if you're working with a CRM, like HubSpot, you often use HubSpot with clients. How you get your data and lead scoring and as clean and as effective as possible. So I think there's always a situation where you think you've got leads and you're providing leads to people or salespeople and they're following up, but they might be doing other things. So having that understanding of the best process for touch points, working directly with sales and seeing that within a CRM, I think that's important as well. And then the last thing is data. So there's kind of reverse IP products out there. There's there's software that can showcase the right time to engage with particular people. There's key triggers like movements in job roles and things like that, where there's kind of organizations that think they've got that level of insight and data. How you utilize those tools and see if that makes a difference to get in front of people when they are in market is it pretty interesting as well, because the old kind of adages in the situation, the majority of the time, as much as you really can try and target people, the majority of people aren't going to be in market at that time really wanting that solution, unless they're really kind of searching actively for it. So you need to think about how you can influence people at the right time and get in front of people, individuals at the right time. So I think that's interesting as well.
Last one, have you got any advice for aspiring young marketers?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating industry to be in, and things are moving so quickly. I mean, I studied like the IDM, or I've done particular courses, and things go out of date so quickly that it's a fascinating space to be in. To how you can influence the growth of an organization. I think there's that saying that there are truly fundamental parts of human psychology that you need to understand, and there are classic books or methodology that you should have a deep understanding of, because tactics, approaches can change, technology can change, but where human beings, understanding how human beings tick, provides that level of understanding that's going to give you the foundations for it. I think when I started my career, the advice was just consume as much different views of how ads work, how campaigns work, what the success stories of them are, and keep that in your little scrapbook, if that's in your head or otherwise, because those tactics or things that have worked historically for the campaigns, you can use it for your company, and you can use it for your campaigns to see what works. And then I think just try and network with people. People coming out of their offices or out of their kind of homes now, and go to groups and kind of networking groups. And there's a lots of good groups out there where people are keen to help young and aspiring marketers. So yeah, so I'd encourage them to do that.
Networking is very important. I agree. Make sure to check out the great shout outs Ed is hosting. And thank you very much, Ed. That was very, very informative. I really enjoyed that. Lots of good material here, very insightful. Appreciate you coming along and doing that. Where can people find you, follow you?
Yeah. So majority of LinkedIn. So just link in with me. That's where I tend to put any kind of comments or engagements. So yeah, find me LinkedIn, Ed Davidson.
LinkedIn. Fantastic. I'll make sure to link all that in the description. Thank you so much again. Have a fantastic day ahead.
No worries. Good to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.